Welcome to All In, a women's sports podcast here on WFUV Sports. I'm Maddie Bimonte. I am joined by my co-host Samantha Bohrer, and we are joined today by a special guest, MLB editorial producer Paige Leckie. Paige graduated from the University of Maryland in 2020, and during her time at UMD, she freelanced with NBC Sports Washington, covering the 2019 Nationals World Series. Paige, we could go on and on about what you do, but before we get ahead of ourselves, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, I'm having a good morning.
That is amazing. I'm so glad you're enjoying the nice Florida, Miami weather. It is a change of pace from what we had 70-degree weather yesterday to 30-degree weather today. It is not fun. But besides the fact we already spoiled that you work as an editorial producer, can you give us a little bit of background about what your day-to-day role is and what you do at MLB?
Yeah, so first of all, you got that from my website?
I did.
I've not updated that. So my current role is as a reporter producer. Forgot to update it when I got hired full time, but it's basically the same thing. I just write more now than I did before. So factually, you're still totally right. But yeah, so my day-to-day, right now during the off season, I generally work either a noon to 8 shift or a 4 to midnight shift, and basically just log on. I'm assigned one of the divisions and I handle any production needs for the 5 teams in that division. And so right now it's kind of fun because this week has been awards week. And so last night I was assigned to produce all of the Sandy Alcantara Cy Young stuff. So that was a lot of fun getting to produce stories about a guy who I helped cover this year.
Wow. That's so much fun. I mean, yeah, as you're saying, it is award season. Obviously, that's one of the fun things about being in sports is seeing everything that you've covered kind of then culminate into something at the end of the season. So what made you decide to pursue a career in sports though?
It kind of happened all of a sudden, almost. I was going into college thinking that I wanted to do archaeology. I had counseled an archaeology camp all through high school, and it was a lot of fun. And it was the only thing I was really passionate about. And so then I got to my freshman orientation, and I was registered as an undecided major. And that summer, I had kind of started to think about, I really love sports. I played sports my whole life. I want to still be involved in sports, but also I like to think I'm a good writer. And people say I'm a good writer, but can we trust people? I don't know. But it kind of just made sense. Okay, I really love sports and I like to write. Why don't I make a career out of it? And so I got to my freshman orientation when we were signing up for classes, and I talked to the advisor that they gave me. And I was like, hey, I think I want to go into journalism. And she was like, call the journalism school right now, see if they will look at your application that you obviously were already accepted to school, but see if they look at your stuff and go from there. And so about a minute after my mom picked me up to drive me home from orientation, I got a call back from the journalism school, and they were like, yeah, we would love to have you. Can you come to the building in 30 minutes and we'll get you set up for all the classes you need. And here I am.
Amazing. And when we first met, because we met back at Maryland through one of our former professors, you had just gotten and wrapped up covering the Nationals World Series, like we mentioned, with NBC Sports. That is absolutely incredible. I just want to know what the experience was like for you.
It was so much fun. Unfortunately, the only game that I actually got to cover in person of that run was the wildcard game, but that was kind of the best one to cover because it was the first major game that they won that year. And it was so surreal. It's still surreal now that I got to be in a locker room that champagne was being poured on everyone and people were celebrating. And that's something that, only a handful of reporters get to do every year. And I got to be one of them before I even had graduated. So it was a lot of fun.
Wow. That's so cool and so special. And like, that is, Maddie and I are both beat reporters. And like, one of the best things is being able to be in those locker rooms with like those athletes that you idolize and like for those special moments. And I mean, I want to ask, because obviously this is a women's sports podcast. We're both women in broadcasting. Maddie and I have often been the only women in those locker rooms, you know, as is the way it kind of goes now, covering especially male sports. I guess, have you faced any particular challenges with that, being a woman in what is really a male dominated field and then covering a lot of male sports?
Some, yeah. I definitely noticed it more in college, I will say, specifically in interactions with players, just because in college it's so weird because you're trying to be professional when you're covering these athletes, but you're also their peer. And a lot of times you have classes with them. And so until they really get to know you, there can be a kind of like, oh, what's up with this girl? Like, she's just a girl. But usually, like, in my experience, the coaches will shut that down pretty quickly. Now, in Major League Baseball, it's not the same kind of challenges, just because, like, the players obviously know that I'm there to do my job, and they're all very respectful. They're all pretty great guys. I had Pete Alonso. I was in a post-game scrum, and me and one of the beat writers were both, who's a male, were both asking questions at the same time. And I deferred to the beat writer because, you know, it's his beat, like, he has the right of way. And Pete stopped him and said, sorry, she was first, and answered 3 of my questions. And I was just like, that means so much. But it's definitely weird. There's also, like, this is going to be a generalization, but we as women tend to be a lot more aware of the space that we take up, specifically because the world expects us to make ourselves smaller to fit into spaces, when in reality, we shouldn't be doing that. And that's something that I work to, like, break that mindset every day. But when you're in a media scrum, these men are not aware of the amount of space that they take up, and also aren't aware of where their body parts are. So I will be, like, trying to, like, maneuver myself so that I can get my recorder in, while also not having anyone, like, brushing up against my front or back side accidentally, because that's just uncomfortable. So that's, like, honestly, that's the biggest day-to-day challenge, is just, like, trying to fit into a space where, like, the people around you aren't aware of the space that they take up.
I am all too familiar with that. I remember my first beat when I was doing the Mets, and I literally was just being shoved around. Like, I'm 5'4", getting shoved around, trying to get a quote, trying to get my little video clip. All of it is, like, the most stressful part about being in that locker room. But another question I kind of want to bring up in that same vein is, do you feel like you're held to any different standard, any higher standard as a woman in journalism, or do you feel like it's been pretty equal for you as of late?
As of late, in most regards, I think it's pretty equal, which is great. Like, I think it helps that I am not in a major market. So even when I'm covering more major market teams, like, if the Angels are here and I'm covering Shohei, or if the Padres are here, they have a major fan contingent, like, on social media. I'll get more eyes on my stuff, but I haven't ever had anyone kind of push back against me and be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because you're a woman. I think that the biggest thing that gets in the way with that is more the standard that you're held to, or that you hold yourself to, when it comes to interacting with players, because things can be misconstrued very easily. And it's very hard for me to try and develop a relationship with players, simply because where players wouldn't they wouldn't think for a second about one of the male writers following them on Instagram, liking an Instagram story. They're going to think about it because I'm a woman and because I'm a young woman. And so I have to be very careful. And like, I have had like, not like major guys, but some guys who were like still early in their career, kind of in the background, who have tried to slide in there. And I've been like, no, like there is a boundary here and you're going to respect that boundary. And they do. But it makes it hard because that's something that we have to spend mental energy thinking about. How am I going to be perceived? Is this going to be perceived as me doing my job, which is what it is? Or is it going to be perceived as me being flirtatious, me trying to like slip in there, get them to notice me? When it's like, no, I'm following these guys on Instagram because that's where they post about their lives, and I can get to know them and develop a relationship with them so that down the road when I'm interviewing them, they know that I see them as a person and not just as this athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, it hasn't, but I know for a lot of other women, especially beat writers, who during the off season, you need ways to contact players. And so the last like series of the year, you go around, and if you don't have a guy's number and you need their number, it's routine for beat writers to ask for their numbers. It's really hard for women beat writers to do because it can so often be misconstrued. Whereas the male beat writers can do it no problem, and it's not thought about for a second.
Yeah.
So
yeah, not very fun in that regard. Maddie and I have also talked about how we're like, well, we have to appear a certain way. There's so much in regards to like physical appearance. Like I don't see men getting criticized for their crazy ties the ways that we get criticized for wearing a puffy sleeve shirt and things like that, or like my Twitter, I get hate tweets that like my male counterparts don't always get because of a typo or a mistake I made. Cause it's like at least I feel like I'm constantly having to prove myself, at this point as someone who does know what I'm talking about. So I'm glad that you haven't had anyone be like, you don't know what you're saying, but there's obviously still things that we're all over. Yeah.
And it's not that like you don't know what you're saying doesn't happen. To be fair, it might happen and I don't see it. I have changed my Twitter settings so that I don't see tweets or replies to my tweets and things from accounts that I don't follow back, or that don't have a certain number of people following them that I also follow, just because like the few times that I've had tweets blow up, I've been like, this is overwhelming and I need to not know all the people who are commenting things.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it definitely happens. And I'm definitely aware of it in how I write. Like all of the articles that I write are very stats heavy, simply because it's like, okay, partially because I grew up in academia and I know that like, okay, I'm gonna make a claim and I need something to support that claim. Some of our male counterparts don't do that. They're gonna make a claim and then move on to another claim and not have the same kind of depth of stats involved in proving their point. And that's one thing that from the work that I do on the editing side, I'm able to see like, okay, they're not including a lot of the stats that I use. This is interesting. Like there is this mental difference in how we consider how we write.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess you were talking about your Twitter briefly. So Maddie and I both loved browsing your Twitter because in addition to being a place where everything is posted about you in terms of your professional life, it's also really fun and personal. And I guess that's something that we Maddie and I have talked about, but like, how do you balance like having fun online and like posting what you want on Twitter and posting like, I hate Tuesdays, like that screenshot of that text and things like that, with also like establishing that like professional persona and everything like that?
I think it helps for me that I don't take social media too seriously. And I mean, sometimes I do, but I also don't have a heinous number of followers. And I'm very upfront about like, this is who I am and you can take it or leave it. And my employers know that. I think it also helps that I'm not verified. So I feel like there's not this expectation of me being like the perfect professional person. But I also just I try to be myself because I think I'm funny. I think I'm a freaking delight. And people don't have to like me, but I'm going to tweet things that I think are funny. And I'm not the person who is going to tweet hot takes about baseball. I'll tweet things when I'm covering a team. I'll tweet things that I think are funny. But I think I try to make sure that I'm doing my job and using Twitter as a platform to do my job while also viewing it as something where I can develop parasocial relationships with fans, with other writers, so that it's very clear that I'm presenting my most authentic self. And for me, that means a lot of random tweets and a lot of tweets about my dating life, which get interesting.
Oh my gosh, those tweets though are the funniest. When we were preparing for this interview, everyone was so excited because they read your Twitter and they were over the moon that somebody was tweeting about pressing issues on dating apps.
True. People on Hinge don't know what they're saying.
They don't on any of them. They don't know what they're saying. And it's just what? But because of that, I'm gonna be really real for a second. Because of that, my standard or my bar is so low because I legitimately told a man on a first date, I was like, I really like that you asked me specifically about working for MLB.com and you didn't make the misconception of asking me about working for the Marlins, because I don't. And it says on my profile that I work for MLB.com. And he was like, okay, Paige, put your hand out flat like that. Okay. And then he took my hand and he went, you need to raise the bar. I was like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. Thank you.
If a man is telling me this on a first date, maybe I need to.
I love that. That's brilliant.
That's absolutely just the best part about having Twitter and being a journalist and doing all of that is just to have fun. And I don't think we have enough fun now on this stuff. It's just because of how serious every work has to be. But talking about less serious things, I gotta ask, you obviously, since you work for MLB, you have to be a fan of certain teams. So who is your dream World Series matchup? Who do you want to be covering in that World Series? What is your goal to get there?
Oh God, that's so hard.
I know. It's a tough question, but it's an important one. We gotta lay the foundation for here now.
See, it gets very hard for me because I am the type of person who, obviously, I grew up a Nationals fan, so I adore them. But I fall in love with every team that I cover, which makes it really hard during the postseason because I'm I like both of these teams who are playing each other. And I like guys on both of these teams and I can't pick one. And then my friends get mad at me because they're like, no, you should hate the Padres, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but I don't. Oh God. I'm trying to think. I'd love to see the Padres in the World Series. And then on the AL side, AL is hard because I haven't covered a ton of AL teams, but I think,
listen, that Padres is kind of a sore spot. I was there for, unfortunately, the wild card this year for the Mets, and that was
rough. That was rough. They were a very fun team to cover when they were here, and they were very entertaining. There are a lot of good guys on that team. But yeah, Padres or Mets, to be honest, because I adore them. And then I'm trying to think. Probably the Rays or the Orioles. So Padres or Mets versus Rays or Orioles, I think.
I would love to see the Orioles, honestly. They are such an underrated team and they did so well this year compared to previous years. So it's really exciting. We're going to make it happen. It's going to happen sometime soon.
Maddie and I are
Just think. Oh, go ahead.
no. I was just saying Maddie and I are both Mets fans, so we rock with you.
Adore the Mets. They're all great guys. I covered them 2 different series this year. Love Buck Showalter. He's a great man.
Literally the nicest. He was so deserving of manager of the year. The nicest guy. I remember when I went to my first reporting, held the door open for me at the press conference, and I was just like, wow, like that's crazy. Like I'm getting the door held open for me by guy literally manages my favorite team, my favorite players. Like that's crazy. Like he doesn't have to be nice, but he is the funniest person to speak to, like, hands down.
The first series that I covered them here, the first day, I have these like Keds they look like a baseball. So they're white and then they have red stitching on them. And I love wearing them to games because they're comfortable, but also like they show people that I actually like care about the sport, kind of, as like surface level that is. It's kind of just like an in for guys will notice the shoes and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I love your shoes. And I'm like, thanks. But Buck noticed them. And so after the like pregame scrum, he pointed them out and he was like, oh, I love your shoes. Oh, those are baseballs. And he was like, where are they from? Do they make them in men's sizes? And then the next day he was like, yeah, I looked, they don't make them in men's sizes. And I was like, damn, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Buck.
Sorry. But I like that you went and you actually searched for them. That's cool.
That video of Kalina, the little girl, going Buck in the post game is the cutest video I think I've ever seen in my life. And she's so cute. She's so precious. So we also got to ask, if you didn't work for MLB.com, if you were not involved in sports and baseball, and I'm gonna also disqualify archaeology from this because you mentioned that was something you wanted to do, what would you do if you dream job, no holds barred? What would you do if you could not pursue your 2 primary career paths?
I mean, this is my dream job, but I couldn't do this. I don't know. It's gonna sound really lame, but I might be an English professor.
It's not lame. We like it.
Like you're like,
they're the funnest teachers. I love all my English professors.
Mm-hmm.
I did a concentration in English at Maryland because I had to finish out credits and I love it. My parents also are both English teachers, so I grew up in a very literate household.
I love.
That is amazing. Like I said, my favorite professors have always been English professors, so I strongly support that. That is like my backup to backup to backup. So on that one. But rocking back around to your Twitter a little bit, because one thing that has dominated your Twitter recently and has dominated our minds, Taylor Swift. We did a show a while ago where we talked right before Midnight's dropped about our favorite Taylor Swift album. So I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, we need your favorite Taylor Swift album. And number 2, did you get tickets to the Eras tour?
Okay. Well, no, I did not get tickets. I did not register for the pre-sale. I'm gonna probably try and get tickets tomorrow, but if I don't, I'll either go or I won't, and I'll make it work. I'll just live vicariously through all the TikToks that people post from the shows. My favorite Taylor Swift album is really hard because I love so many of her early albums, but like they can't be my favorite until she does the re-recording.
That's true.
So like I love Speak Now, which is supposed to be her next re-recording. So we'll see. We'll see if all the Easter eggs she's dropped are true. But until then, I think Folklore. It's just I love so many songs on there, and it's like the perfect balance of like happiness and melancholy, because like they're really like beautiful songs, but they're also that kind of like weird, like I'm happy and sad at the same time vibe, which is kind of exactly what this year has been for me.
So true, as it has been. But we're getting close to the new year. Fresh start. Our start coming. I'm personally pumped. I love New Year's
I am
Eve.
too.
So
My mom's birthday is January 1st, so
I love that. My two best friends that I always celebrate New Year's with, they're identical twins. Their birthday is January 1st at like 1 a.m, like right after New Year's Eve.
that's wild.
So it's always their birthday party too. And it's like the best thing ever because we all just like celebrate midnight and then we sing happy birthday immediately after. And so I get to be there for both, which is awesome.
That's so cute. I love that.
Yeah, like, and you get to bring in a new year with like them being a year older. So
Yeah.
it's fun. This is another silly question we have for you.
I love silly questions.
I know. Aren't they fun? Someone asked me this. They're so fun. Someone asked me this when we were on a radio show, and I was like, neither of the above is the answer. Do you think you'd be more likely to be able to hit a ball from an MLB pitcher or kick a 45-yard field goal? Because
45-yard field. Sorry, I interrupted you before you finished.
no, you knew.
I played soccer for 12 years and I was a defender, and my specialty was just clearing the ball down the field. And I didn't make my high school varsity team my junior year. I still played rec, so I kept playing, but there were politics involved in high school soccer that were dumb.
Always.
But both of my grandfathers were like, Paige, like, okay, you didn't make it, so what? You need to go try out for the football team. And it's like, I'm not prepared to like be forced to like be around all those sweaty boys. And also go like do all of the like weightlifting stuff that they do. Like, no, now I lift weights. Back then I was like, what is lifting weights? Not for me. Now I'm like, I'm getting swole.
No, that's so true. I did the exact same thing. I did the soccer for like 13 years and then was just like, I got to the point where I was like, no, it's not for me anymore. Also a defender. So I understand the absolute pressure that comes with being a defender, but yeah, the 45-yard field goal for me, easy.
Yeah.
Hitting the ball, when I see how fast they're throwing now, it's just impossible. You can't hit anything. Like I went to a batting cage and I didn't hit a single thing.
Yeah, it's impossible. I mean, and I played softball for a few years and I don't even know if I got any. I think I got like a couple hits, but that was also because I wasn't one of the starters. I was the starting pinch runner for our pitcher because I was fast and I knew how to slide. So I stole every single base safely and never got called out. But I could not hit the ball to save my life.
That is absolutely crazy. And we could go like on all day, but unfortunately we're kind of running out of time. So I want to kind of close out with one final question. Is there anything in particular that you would say to a young woman pursuing a career in sports broadcasting, sports journalism? What would your advice be to them?
My advice to them would be advice that I give to all of my friends when they call asking for a pep talk before a job interview or when they need advice when they're applying to jobs. Go into whatever career you're going into, whether you're a broadcaster, writer, whether you're not even going into sports. Go into the room, a job interview, whatever, with the audacity and confidence of a mediocre white man. You laugh, but you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
And it never fails. It always works. Because there are studies that show that men are more likely to apply for jobs if they meet a few of the qualifications, but women will only apply for jobs when they meet all of the qualifications. And that all that has to do with that is confidence and with what society tells us we can and can't be. So if we go in with confidence, there's no stopping you. Mm-hmm. That's what I try and do. I act like I belong in the space, and eventually, even if you don't believe it, you're going to start believing it, and everyone around you will.
Absolutely. And that is honestly perfect advice. I honestly couldn't have said it better myself with it, but Thank you so much, Paige, for joining us today on All In. And thank you to everyone watching, listening, for tuning into All In. We will be back again after Thanksgiving with more across the world of women's sports. All In is a production of WFUV Sports.